Hello and welcome to the Art and Mind Village Chat. I'm Fred Johnson, artist in residence and community engagement specialist at the Straz Center for the Performing Arts, the partner with Miss Susan Magsamen, executive director of the Art and Mind Lab at Johns Hopkins University, and really the driving force that has created this foundation for us to come together and share an artistic and scientific and research conversation about the importance of art as a modality in all of its forms for the health and well-being of each of us personally, our communities, and our world. Susan, welcome. It's always an honor to be able to do this journey with you.
Thank you, Fred. It's great to be here. I'm really excited about today.
We are joined by a couple of members of our Arts and Mind Village chat team, and also two folks that were really an integral part of the journey that we take today with our esteemed guest, Jaques Heim, artistic director, the visionary of the Diavalo dance company. So here with us today are Miss Jennifer Harmon, who is a veteran who joined us on the original dance journey with our veteran civilian dance ensemble. She is an amazing writer. We have had the great glory of being able to see her evolve and see her company grow in terms of her writing and supporting other writers, and on to teach at university. She's returned to the fullness of her dance work and is seeking choreography. So she's kind of a true artist in so many ways. And again, she is a member of our Art and Mind team. So Jennifer, welcome to this conversation today.
Thank you, Fred. That was quite an introduction.
Well, it's true, and we also are really honored. And my brother from another mother, who we have continued to take artistic journeys together. I had the opportunity to hear him speak many years ago, and I was inspired not only by his artistry, but he is really a holder of great history and knowledge about the world of dance. He himself is a world-renowned dancer, presently a professor at the University of South Florida. Our good friend and mentor, John Parks. John, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Susan. Nice to be here.
And we are all gathered together today to celebrate and have a tremendous conversation with a gentleman who has inspired us all. We had the great opportunity at the Straz Center to participate in a program with the Diavalo dance company, Architecture in Motion. Jaques Heim, who describes himself way beyond being a choreographer, and I know he'll dig deep into that. But one of our first true experiences at the Straz Center around really doing work that encompassed healing and wholeness and the creation of community was our project that we did with our veteran civilian dance ensemble. So we are so honored, Jaques, that you have been able to take the time out and be with us here in the Art and Mind Village chat. Welcome, my friend. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, of course. As soon as you give me the call, my answer was automatically yes, absolutely. I had such an amazing experience in Tampa Bay with all of you. It was truly a moment in my life that marked me. So as soon as you say, Jaques, can you do yes? You asked me, Jaques, we want to do yes. But we wanted no, yes, and it was done. And Jennifer, it was, truly a moment, and I miss it. And so thank you for having me.
So Jaques, for our listeners, please share what the Diavalo, the company itself, the concept. Please share with us.
The concept, the concept. Where's the let me tell you, actually, let me go back, and I'm going to speak really fast because I know we're on the time, but I'm from Paris, France. When I grew up, I was a rebel. I got kicked out of 6 different schools. And so my family said, Jaques, you need to leave France. You need to go to America, the land of opportunity. So I did. I got lucky. I went to a small college in Vermont, Middlebury College, Then I went into the theater department, but that was in the 80s. So my English was so bad, so nobody could understand me when I was doing Tennessee Williams or Shakespeare. It sounded like to be or not to be, the question, and the audience was saying, what the heck is he saying? So the dean of the theater was saying, Jacques, I'm so sorry, you cannot stay in this department. Luckily, I had some friends in the dance department who told me, Jacques, why don't you come and take some dance classes? At least you don't have to speak. So then I fell in love with this beautiful universal language movement. And that was truly powerful. In a different life, I wish I could be an architect. I love the language of architecture. So I decided to mix my two love for movement, this beautiful universal language, love for architecture. And that's why I created this dance company called Diavalo, Architecture in Motion, and went to California Institute of the Arts, did my master's, and the next natural progress was to start this dance company. I have to tell you that I'm the most dyslexic and unflexible artistic director that you'll meet. I still cannot touch my toes. It is embarrassing. I know, John, you're looking at me going, shame on you. And I know most of the time when I work with dancers,
I resemble that remark. I'm like that too.
And so, you know, that's what I did, you know, in 1992, started this dance company, still, you know, and not knowing why really. I knew I was just passionate. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, is because I love collaboration. I love working with human. I love human, and I want to help human. That I knew that. In France, I was always pushed down with the French system and the education, which I hated it. And I remember that when I came to this country, I says, this is, I think I want to do. I want to help human. I don't know. And so I think that this dance company became, at the beginning, I didn't know, but it became the vehicle to do this.
That's great. And I mean, I think it's just so powerful to hear you talk about seeing movement and really seeing the articulation of movement as a language, you know, as a bridge builder. And I think that that's so, so important because movement is not limited by how one might define a word. And so, you know, we always kind of learned and understood that the universality of communication does live in that space of movement, and that's such a powerful thing. Speaking specifically about, you know, so the growth and development and the vision to move forward and to create experiences of architecture and movement working together. I know that our introduction and our connection to you was in terms of the commitment that you had and the work that you began to do with veterans. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I you know, maybe I'll go back a little bit. You know, when I started this dance company, and I had young men and women coming to this company, and you know, the reason why I also use architecture, and I have to mention that, is because I love the interaction and action between the human body and the architectural environment, how it is affecting us not only socially, but physically and emotionally. And then rapidly, you know, I have to tell you, and maybe this is not the question that you asked me, but I remember vividly that maybe over 25 years ago, something during the big earthquake that we had in Los Angeles, I was living in an apartment complex with people in many different apartments that I didn't know. And then suddenly the earthquake happened, and a flash of a second, suddenly, everybody came out and we start sharing blankets and food and flashlight and helping one another. And we started this beautiful community. And I said to myself, holy shit, but this is absolutely amazing that strangers suddenly come together. When you put people in a state of survival, they come closer together like in the most amazing care. At that moment, I realized I want to capture that moment and I want to make that happen. since that earthquake, I said, let's have another earthquake. I'm ready because I love that experience. But what I decided is that I'm going to recreate that with my dance company. So, so sorry, this is all my dog is about to bark.
It's okay.
I wanted to recreate this moment that I experienced with the strangers in my building. And so the reason in the work of Diavalo, there's a lot of danger, it is on purpose. Not that I want those beautiful humans to be injured, but because I want to put them in that state of survival. So we come together closer and we help one another. That's why 6 years ago, at that time, my executive director, Jennifer Chang, said, you know, Jacques, there's an interesting parallel with the men and women of the armed forces. It'd be great for you to work with them. Then I have to be honest with you. I was scared shitless to work with veterans. I didn't know anything about the veterans. I remember I was home at the beginning of the first workshop. At that time, Dusty Alvarado, education director, says, Jacques, you need to come in. I say, no, I don't know what to do with them. They're going to kick my ass. I don't know. I mean, you know. And then after an hour, he called me and said, Jacques, you have to come here. We need you. So I drove from my home to the Diavalo studio downtown Los Angeles, sweating, going, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I said, Jacques, come on, just do what you do. Just do what you did with your dancers for the last 20 years. And I go, oh, okay. And the light shift, and I go, oh, this is what I've been doing. And as soon as I enter into the studio, say, good morning, let's start. And basically, I did what I do with my dancers. And what do? I'm like the drill sergeant. I am the football coach. I am an electrician trying to recircuit their mind, try to understand what they are about. I am doing restoration, try to restore their physical, emotional, and mental strength. And I'm going to give you actually just a little quote from this great veteran war journalist, Sebastian Junger, because if I can capture what we are doing is this: loyalty and belonging and the internal human quest for meaning. It's about why, for many people, war feels better than peace, and hardship can turn out to be a great blessing. And disasters are sometimes remembered more fondly than wedding or tropical vacations. Humans don't mind hardship. In fact, they thrive on it. What they mind is not feeling necessary. Modern society has perfected the art of making people not feel necessary. And that is my goal, to make you feel absolutely necessary, to regain that. And I tell my veterans, do not abandon yourself. So in a way, the way I treat my veterans, and sometimes my dancers behind me, Jacques, you're crazy. And I look at them with no pity. I don't care if you have any problem physically, emotionally, I don't give, but we're gonna work together. I'm gonna deconstruct you, rebuild you. Now I have to do that because that's the kind of first steps of the work. So with care and love. And then suddenly they start feeling necessary. And they, even if they cannot walk, even if they have broken bones, mental issues, suddenly you see a rebuilding because they don't have any choice with me than just to rebuild and restore.
Oh, it's beautiful. Susan, you know, I mean, this conversation here is so powerful. I wonder, you know, that the whole concept of feeling necessary, or what, you know, Jacques talked about in terms of, you know, it bringing people together, sort of, you know, out of conflict, coming together, alignment, you know, in the research that you've done and in the scientific, you know, roads that you have traveled, is there a commonality in terms of the need or the desire to articulate artistically that there is, it fills a sense of necessity or belonging or being?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I really relate to what you're saying, Jacques, in terms of people don't want to be pitied. They don't want to be helpless. They don't want to be hopeless. And how you turn that energy into sometimes drive and determination and motivation is hard. Because I think physiologically, neurochemically, things like depression and despair are really hard to lift up from. And I think what I hear you saying is that you don't go there. You can touch it, but it's a place to start, not a place to live. And I think the arts, just thinking about music, the sound and tenor and tone of certain kinds of music, the hard hitting, beat of percussion sometimes. And then I love what you just said about risk and space and danger. I mean, when we're in a dangerous space, our bodies are all firing because we don't know what to do. And so we're very aware. And that, I think, also gets us going. It's another way to get us going, and managing risk and taking chances. And on the other side of that chasm, you always feel like you've accomplished something. So marrying that, very powerful energy into the work. And just one other thing, this idea about in connection, Fred. We can't live without connection. And sometimes we don't know how to connect because we feel so different than others because of things that have happened to us. And so dance is a way to do that, to touch, to connect, to feel, to relate without words. But it's implied and it's intrinsic and it's known. And so there's a lot of work around how we belong and how we collaborate and communicate. And if you're the maker, like the dancer, there's profound change. But I'll also sort of flip it to the audience, or the beholder is also mirroring that and empathizing with that and perspective taking and saying, yeah, me too. I know that feeling of vulnerability. I know that feeling of pain. I know that feeling of being lost. I see a way forward. You just showed me something I couldn't find myself. And so as a beholder, I leave with a lot, same and different as the performer. So it's really, and I can't think of anything that would do this transformative change than something like dance. It's so extraordinary.
Yeah, well, I can attest to the fact that you could really feel that transference in the theater when the performance happened, the energy and the power of what was happening on the stage. It was hypnotic and it really, really connected. Let's take a moment and take a look at the first clip that we have, Jaques. What's the first, because it's important, I think, for folk to get a glimpse of Diavolo. We've been talking about it.
But the first clip what you're going to see is actually it's really kind of summarized a little bit from Diavolo has two sides. One is entertainment, using architecture and movement. So we were on the TV show American Got Talent in season 12. And so this will show everybody a little bit of compilation of structure and movement on that TV show.
Very good. So here's our first clip of Diavolo, architecture in motion.
I've been
cut that. You know, it's interesting because you look at it and behind just, you know, the visual entertainment aspect, it has nothing to do about entertainment. Because what we put those men and women through, again, is that same topics of putting them into a state of survival. They don't know that at first. I do. And then slowly they realize, shit, I cannot hide behind this work. I have to be there. If they're not there at a particular moment, something catastrophic can happen. And suddenly they have to start to have a sense of responsibility, accountability, being there for the stranger, for the other dancer. That's really the underscore of this work. But I did not know that 20 years or 30 years ago. And it's really only starting with the veteran community that I realized that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years. It took me 25 years to figure that out. French people, we are a little slow to figure out things, but thank God. But that's really the core. That's why working with the veteran community is actually a complete natural aspect. And now has become our mission. Beside still creating pieces for, you know, entertainment or touring or permanent shows, that is now the focus, working with veterans and civilians. And that's the other part. The reason I mix veterans and civilians working together and why it's important to present that in front of strangers, i.e. an audience. So the audience only get confused. Who is the veterans? Who is the civilians? Because veterans are beautiful human beings like you and I. And I realize a lot of civilians really don't know what veterans go through. It's like a different society, different than, you know, the people in Israel where they all have to go to their service. And when they come back, the entire country and city knows exactly what they're going through. So already they have that society taken care of. Here in the United States, it's not like that. So I wanted to mention that. And also I wanted to mention about the word DANCE. We do not use DANCE. Has become something a bit of a taboo. And that is interesting about, you know, working with veterans, because when we recruit veterans, and if I say, hey, can you come, you know, take this workshop and we dance, they get dance. Because dance in the culture is like, you know, a hip hop or a ballet, modern jazz or all that stuff. But I don't do that. So I eliminate dance. I wish actually that Diavalo would not be categorized as a dance company, but as a movement company. So when I talk with veterans and say, don't worry, we move. The first thing that human does, they're born, they crawl, we crawl, and we crawl, and then we step and we walk. We move. We are all movers. Every human being on this planet are beautiful movers. So I say to them, we're going to move. Do you crawl? Yes. Can you walk? Or if you're in a wheelchair, can you move? Yes. If you're on crutches, can you move your body with crutches? Yes, we can move. We'll find a way to crawl, to run, to skip. Yes, we can. And that suddenly opened the horizon and say, okay, we're going to move.
Beautiful. Jennifer Harmon, as a veteran who was a part of the veteran civilian experience, how was it for you, and how did it impact you, and how did you as a veteran step into this experience and find some measure of awakening and alignment?
So whenever I'm asked this question, I almost always have the same answer, and that it was truly a life-changing experience for me. I mean, it changed the whole trajectory of where my life and career was going. You know, when I walked in the doors at the Straz, my former life was as a dancer, you know, and I had gone maybe 20 years without performing. I still took a class here and there, but when I walked through those doors for the first day of rehearsals with Diavalo, it was overwhelming at first to come back to what was home for me. But then beyond the space, when I was in rehearsal hall that first day, rehearsal hall, it's an open, studio room, and we're surrounded by mirrors. And I honestly didn't know the person that was looking back at me any longer. And through that residency that was very intense, we spent a great deal of time together, and it was grueling, but also amazing. I probably shed a few pounds during that experience, but I started to reconnect with the person I was before I was a veteran, before I was a mom, before I was a wife, before I was an employee, all of these different titles, and hats that I've carried, where I lost myself in the mix. And then sprinkle in a little bit of trauma with that. And there was a lot of emotional detachment that I didn't even realize was an issue. And Jacques and the performers from Diavolo, they really helped me. And you know this, Jacques, I owe so much to you because you forced me to see me, to see in me what you saw in me. Here I go, do this every time. But I really had lost the person that I was, and that experience kind of showed me a different reflection, and it gave me an opportunity to almost start over, or start anew, and go from there. And that has evolved in so many different ways that in the years since, because that was, I think, 2019 that we did that. I've since done three other projects, maybe two other projects virtually with Diavalo. But my whole business model has changed because of my experience. The things that I'm engaged in now with the community, what I'm doing, as a professor at St. Leo, everything I do now comes back to that moment and that experience. And I'm forever grateful and forever changed as a result.
Wow. John, your years of being in the world of movement, and being one of the first voices that I actually heard articulate the fact that it's beyond what we know or just take a look at and traditionally understand as dance, that every element of our being is encapsulated in the world of movement. And so that's a conversation that you have fostered for a really, really long time. Diavolo, Jacques came into town and they put the foundation there, and you and Couture Robinson were charged with the responsibility of keeping that all together until Jacques and company came back into town. How was the experience for you?
Very, very exciting, very, very exciting, and very enlightening. As you mentioned, I've been involved with dance for a number of years, but the working with veterans was I was scared. I was apprehensive because that was a population that I had not worked with before, and not been really familiar with. My father was in the service, and my uncles were in the service, but I had never served, and so I didn't have an immediate experience with veterans on a day-to-day basis. So I was a little distant like that, and also Jacques is also intimidating, and so and also, the thing is that I have been working at the university level, but not really working in the professional dance world for a number of years, and I was I see that, and so it was refreshing to know and to work with someone that works on that kind of level again, that works at that kind of pitch where you are at the razor's edge, and every moment and every movement means something, and is as important, and you have to move with more intentionality, So that was very, very refreshing. It was a change. It was refreshing because it was I was I had a chance to renew myself and renew my energy and focus into dancing and to moving and thinking in a different way. And working with veterans was very exciting. And I realized that there isn't that much of a difference. You know, we both talk about groups as companies. You know, we work with a company. There is companies in the military. We work in unison. There is an attention to detail that we all do, both as artists and as the military and as veterans, and that's the work ethic of veterans and the people who served in the military is just as strong, if not stronger, than artists and dancers, and the way that we work. And so I found a real solace in that. I found a real comfort in that. And if it wasn't for Jaques, I don't think I would have really shifted my gears in terms of looking at dance even more so, and acting on dance more so as healing and wellness. We all know what dance does, and the therapeutic energy and healing aspects that it has for everyone, both the artist and also for the viewer. But really crystallizing it and putting it in a real perspective and giving me a direction and a journey in that was something that I owe to you, Jaques, in terms of really focusing in on identifying that and crystallizing that in my own mind. So thank you.
You're welcome, John. Actually, John, you know, now that we're putting the card on the table, I felt you were also very intimidating. I was intimidating by you, and also impressed because you're like a legend, and say, holy shit, there's a legend in the room. Oh my gosh, I better not mess up. And so it was, you know, I have to say that the Tampa Bay experience, the reason is because the entire team, a collaboration with Katura, with you, with Fred, Jennifer, was you know, that whole sort of team was absolutely beautiful. And I was learning from all of you. I was inspired by all of you. And that's really what made this experience so tremendous.
That was a great fusion. I mean, as a former Marine and as a former drill instructor and as an artist, there was this amazing energy, powerful energy, level of commitment where everybody just full out was fully committed. And there was so much learning and experiencing that was happening along the way. You know, Jaques, your sensitivity to sort of shift artistically, I think it's safe to say that the final performance of Diavolo at the Straz Center was not what it was originally conceptualized. There were things that were shifted and changed and added, and it was
yeah, I mean, I was, you know, hearing and listening and was to all of you and see what was happening, was this kind of a organism, you know, happening. So actually this could be a great time. I don't know if you plan, but to show the little clip from Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's do that. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Your voice is there, and then also it's a very simple little moment.
Do you remember the dark months?
Nights you watched and wired and dug in piles, sandbags on parapets.
Do you remember the rats and stench?
Corpses rotting in front of the front line trench.
And dawn coming, dirty white and chilled with a hopeless rain.
Do you ever stop and ask, is it all going to kind of war that you'll
It was such a special, beautiful little moment, this scene, and there were so many scenes, and the voices was just really gorgeous. I listen to it time to time when I'm down or when I need to be re-inspired, and this always gets me. Yeah, it was, it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it brought back a lot of memories. It was really, really a really powerful, wonderful, creative time. We couldn't wait, you know what I mean, to all be together and to make it happen. You know, Susan, I mean, with all of the presentations that we've done and all the conversations that we have, I mean, it really feels to me, we've talked a number of times about this broader conversation about art and how it can create space for personal healing and make space for communal healing. And certainly in the world today now, I think it's those natural human connectors that we so seek to remind people of, these kinds of experiences. I think art just does that in a way that maybe nothing else does. And, you know, just watching that clip and remembering not just the final outcome and what people in the audience saw, but there was so much energy in that space of what had been created together, energetically and otherwise. I mean, when we had the talk back, the questions that people were asking were amazing. They weren't just specifically about the dynamic of what they saw artistically. They wanted to know more about how did this, what happened, and that was so exciting.
You know what, when I was watching it, there's so many interesting aspects of it. Visually, the color is so amazing, and the way the light hits different things. And then, you bring in the sound. But what occurred to me is that, you're watching, experiencing so many emotions at the same time, which is what life is, right? It's not all sad and all beautiful, all tragic, all heroic. It's everything at the same, which is how we function, right? We're not one emotion. When people say, "Oh, I'm sad," well, you may be sad, but you're also happy and joyful and crushed, and and it all is unfolding. And the thing that I think is interesting about art movement as an aesthetic experience is, in this case, what you've done is turn the volume up, like as if this, it gets, the emotional resonance is very loud. Like you don't want to look away, and it imprints you and codes on you in a way that, I think, to your point, Fred, I can't think of other things that the volume comes up to that point, that you have this multi-emotional experience that's just so sensorial, multi-sensorial, and provocative, and you don't want it to stop. Like when it stopped just now, I was like, oh, like more. And I think we want that level of connection to each other, that deep level of connection to each other. So it's very powerful.
Yeah.
I have if you may, Fred, I have a question for Susan that is being this question. And the question is, why do we find more in this country, in the United States, the need for the arts to be utilized in a different way than the rest of the country and the world, like arts as a healing here in this country? Because when I go to Paris or Switzerland or other places where family and friends are, or friends in Spain, and I talk about what I do, the response is, oh, they're kind of surprised, because in Europe, they use art as, they create a piece, it goes into a theater, but they don't have programs like we have in the United States. And I was wondering why here? What's happening here in the United States compared
Do
to
you think that's a good thing, or do you think that, see, here's how I think about it. And maybe this is not answering your question, so it's not, let me know.
Yeah.
Indigenous cultures embed all of these expressions in everything they do, right? They don't name it as art or therapy or, practice. It's ritual, tradition, routine. It's all part of indigenous cultures. I have some very good friends who are French, and the minute music starts, they start to dance because they dance. And Americans wait till they have 4 drinks and then they get on the dance floor, right? And so I think there is a cultural, and this is, cultural meaning melting pot cultural thing here, where we tend to segment things. A big thing in other countries is that many arts are paid for by social medicine or social services. So in Paris or in France and in the UK and Australia and Canada, all of these things that we think of as therapeutics are part of things that you can get within a healthcare system or within a culture system. And so I think here, arts are not covered for health and well-being. They're nice to have, not a have to have. They're being taken out of schools, not put in schools. They're not used for social emotional learning. And so I think in some ways the US is we're trying to build. Now, it's not true in all countries, the research and arts come together, but I do think that there's more underpinning to hold those, to create those containers. And maybe you're saying something different, so I'd love to understand what you're saying.
No, actually, you answer it, and you answer it. Really, yeah. No, that makes sense. Also,
We're so, US is so far behind,
Yeah.
really so far behind in honoring our birthright of making and doing and being and moving.
I think there's also, there is a living reality that exists in the American culture of denial. Much of the artistic expression, and I can speak as a Black American, a great deal of the voice given to the voiceless is born out of our art. It's born out of our music. Our messaging was tailored to song so that it would appear as if the disconnect was still there and we weren't able to connect. I think the reality of the experiences of the American indigenous community, that medicine, the medicine from within, the conversations and relationship between the earth and our posture and our movement. I mean, it really has been a coded kind of a thing, and we've been asked, well, how in the world did y'all survive? And I think that's the reality in the Blue Hills. I think that it's in the folk music and the country music of America. A lot of that is organically born out of giving voice and giving a place of comfort where there was great chaos. And so, and the industry of art in America, the industry that was created where the art is de-emphasized as a heart journey, and it became a commodity. And so, again, and we struggle now to try to find our way back to our humanity. And the human mind, the human body has a need and a desire to be moved, and it's moved through that language that you so eloquently spoke about. How you saw a movement and you saw another language, and that language opened up something. It included more people. It created an opportunity for a translation that was more universal. I think the American social structure is such that we recognize that we need that now. So it's an interesting thing. So listen, I just want to proclaim the reality, my friend, that your vision and what you are able to do is powerful. It's powerful, it's healing, it's celebratory, it calls forth and demands a commitment, which is so wonderful. And I know that safety first is also a really important thing for you, is because I want people to be aware of the fact that along the way, before, people put themselves out there, there was a lot of trust work that went into that, and a lot of taking a look at what's the safe way. So it looks incredibly dangerous, and yeah, it is, but there's also a real attention to safety and to everybody's personal commitment. So I want everybody listening to this to know that it's not just like, okay, here we go. You go, you got it or you don't. No, there was a tremendous amount of attention given to that heart-centeredness of we are one and we work together. As you move forward, as Diavolo moves forward, what is today, tomorrow? What is the future looking like for Diavolo in terms of the work that you do?
That is a great question. Let me tell you, why don't I tell you my dream and the kind of where we want to go. We want to create a center, a place that is basically year-long, kind of nearly all day. Let's imagine it could be called the Raw Center, Raw for restoration for all warriors, where we have a team and veterans and civilians comes, and we do series of workshops of restoration movements. Some will culminate into a presentation, some will not. Imagine that, so here we go, I win the lottery. What do I do with that money? I buy a warehouse. And I put it into humans, where I train humans, a whole entire team with a team of trauma therapists, movement coach, and we have a whole team, and we're there yearly, 24 hours, and we recruit veterans and also civilians, and we have a different series of workshop, and some that culminate, as I mentioned, to presentation, because that's part of it, some that are not. And we also do a training where we go in different city and we train how we do it, because I realized that the last 6 years, actually, there is a method to what we do, to what we are doing. This last year, I was able to kind of bottle it, and we took series of data of results with the veterans in their everyday life to see if that changes and how tools they use from the workshop. So that's what I would like to do. That's the goal. Also, I realized that it could be interesting to have also a permanent show with, the word entertainment is a word that scares people, and they have, but actually what we do is also very beautiful, visually, emotionally impact, and have that in a permanent place with veterans and civilians. And we rotate veterans, we help them, they come to our workshop, and they rotate, so you hear different stories. And so every other month, there's a new kind of version to it. And this beautiful permanent installation show with different structures, because lately and maybe we'll show a clip later with SOS, this kind of new program, a piece. SOS stands for Signs of Strengths. Strengths of soldiers, sign of survival, save our souls. SOS. What I did is that I put the civilians and veterans into kind of a army military uniform, and I bring them back into the trenches. Why? I realized over the last 6 years, when I ask every veterans, most of them say, I will go back into war in a heartbeat. And at first I was stunned by that, because war is horror. But the reason is not so much about the war, but about getting back to the camaraderie and the experience they have with their tribe. And I have to go back. So now there's a little shift into the studio. I bring them back into that place with the sound of war, with the intensity. And that's what I did a little bit with SOS. And so this installation piece you will see soldiers climbing a giant mountain hill, and it would be a structure with dry dirt, but then it starts raining on the stage and the dirt becomes mud and they're falling down. But at the edge of the stage, there's a small river 4 feet wide by 20 feet long, and they fall into this water, and there's a camera angle where suddenly full of mud, they get clean as a metaphor of purity. of air, of oxygen, and the dirt of the mud goes away, and they're in the middle of the water, and they start moving because water is very therapeutic. And it goes on for like an hour of stories. We hear the personal stories and movement. So that's this kind of.
Wow.
It's almost
It's
a,
incredible.
it's almost a baptism.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when you were
Yes,
talking,
Susan, go ahead.
oh, sorry, this is a hit that I just got. When you were talking, and you said, I thought you were gonna say camaraderie, and that being part of your tribe. But there's also this work around reconsolidation of memory and how, well, there's two things. One is this idea around purpose, right? You have this hill to climb and you feel a purpose, but then also how you remember. Your stories change as you remember them and as you create a narrative that goes from dissonance to kind of a harmony, and the crescendo here of them sort of being purified or cleansed of that, so we reconstitute, reconsolidate, which is very healing to how do you move forward. And there's this term called erasure in neuroscience where you keep doing, you see it like with people that are afraid of spiders and stuff. You open up these windows and you take out the emotional content, but you remember the story. So you're not traumatized any longer and you can tell the story without the emotional content. And I think there's something that's happening in this that's doing that for you too. You do it over and over again until you go, it doesn't hurt me anymore. And I'm changed. I know it, but I can still observe it, right? And all of that was just hitting me as you were speaking.
Wow, that's powerful. Well, let's watch SOS. Let's,
It's a little excerpt, a little compilation with some of my words describing all of it.
let's watch SOS. That sounds great. Thanks.
What you're going to see tonight is more than a piece, but a part of a program, the Diavalo Veterans Program. After working with the military veterans community for over 6 years, we realized that the philosophy and the movement of Diavalo are medicine for the veterans. Most of veterans wants to go back to their service or their deployment because of the tight camaraderie and incredible support system they find with each other. We are trying to restore their mental, emotional, and physical strength and the commitment to themselves. SOS, Signs of Strength, is intense and at times dangerous on purpose. When you put people in a state of survival, they come together stronger than ever, the same way the men and women of the armed forces experience it in their service. Like soldiers in the trenches of war, civilians and veterans are able to put all their political, religious, and cultural beliefs aside to be able to work together and support each other. You are going to meet amazing veterans and discover who they are. They represent thousands and thousands of others who needs to be seen, who needs to be heard, who needs to be supported and being taken care of. We are not trying to create an art piece here, but using the art for our veterans to find peace. This is SOS, Signs of Strength.
So basically you've seen a lot of elements that we did in Tampa, and we built this wall, and so it has a lot of the same element that we will use. This time we're focusing on really the sound of war and bring them back into this space. Most of our veterans deploy in Afghanistan and Iraq. there was this moment where one of our veterans, a woman who had a traumatic experience in Iraq, where she happened to, the scene was she saw a child coming close to her vehicle, and she was protecting her soldiers. And she asked this child, do not approach, and, and repeatedly over and over. And as a woman and as a mother, she couldn't find the sense to actually shoot that child. But then suddenly that child was a suicide bomber, and he had bombs, and he pressed, and all her soldiers die, most of them. And to this day, for the last 10 years, she was not able to tell that story. Every morning she didn't want to get up, and she, as a mother, was a child of 11 years old. And they had issue to connect with one another until she came into Diavolo, and we kind of dig deep, and she was able to tell that story. And from that story, we were able to create the scenes. At the beginning, she was very angry with me because I pushed her over and over, and I was not going to abandon her. Until now, she can hear that story and not hurt her as emotionally. And now she can actually, and now she gets up every morning, and she is excited to see the sun shine. And now she's even closer with the child. And so what I did, I invited her child to participate in SOS. So now we see this child moving throughout all the scenes. So that's SOS.
It's powerful. It's really, really powerful. It's hard for us to fully and completely understand the full measure of the commitment and challenges that are faced when people are called to go and serve in war. So thank you so much, Jaques, for your vision and your commitment, your understanding. It's so deeply, deeply appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to share this journey with us. And we're really honored and happy that more and more folk will get a greater sense of who you are and who Diavolo is. Thank you, Susan, for being able to really kind of share that perspective that, really brings into focus that the realities that we face every day are very complicated. And to the degree that we can really more deeply understand and be committed to more deeply understand and do whatever we can in our own creative ways is so very important. Thank you, John, for taking out time from your conference to be able to be with us. And thank you, Jennifer, for your story and for your continued contribution and support. And thank you to all of you who have taken and shared with us one of your most valuable commodities, and that's your time, so that we can continue to more deeply understand and share this journey of art and the world of creativity, and how working in alignment with our researchers and scientists and folk who are committed every day to helping us to more deeply understand what is it about this life and living that we can share to make all of our experiences better, safer, healthier, so that we can create a healthy world where all of our children and everybody can remember that it's really our hearts and it's really our willingness to try to understand the things that we don't understand and try to make the world a better place. That's an opportunity that we get each and every day of our lives with every breath that we take. I'm Fred Johnson on behalf of the Straz Center and Susan Mag-Salmon and Johns Hopkins University. And until next time, be safe. Create something in your life, create a laugh, create some laughter. The world needs a lot more laughter. And again, Jaques, thank you so very, very much, my friend. Our best to all of the members of Diavolo. Until next time, everybody, take care.
Thank you so much.